Welcome to this month's Consciousness Engineering session. Now, in this particular session, you're going to learn not just a new model of looking at the world, but also a number of systems you can apply to make this model work for you. The model that we're going to play with is the idea that human beings can source information outside the physical world. It's the idea that beyond just reading a book or getting on the internet, we can source information through a sixth sense. Now, science hasn't really determined exactly how this sixth sense works, right? But there have been numerous studies and millions of people have gone through experiences that seem to indicate that there is a way that we can source information to help us make the right decision through listening to an inner part of ourselves. Now, let me tell you why this is so important. Think about if you were investing in the stock market and you wanted to make money in the stock market. How many times would you have to be able to bet right? Let's simplify things and assume it's just a 50-50 rule, right? How many times would you need to be able to bet right? You wouldn't have to bet correctly 70 or 80 or 90% of the time. You'd simply have to do so 55% of the time or so, just slightly higher than normal. And life is often like that. You don't have to be always right. You just have to make the right decisions slightly more than making the wrong decisions. And you can grow your life in many remarkable ways. I found that listening to an inner sixth sense has been able to help me make more right decisions than wrong. And I've noticed that many of the most brilliant men I've met in the world have had that same experience. For example, I remember being on an island with Sir Richard Branson, and I've had the good fortune to spend at least 2 or 3 hours in just private one-on-one conversation with Richard Branson to really try to understand what made him tick. And one of the questions I asked him once was, how do you know how to pick the right business partner? I mean, Branson has had about 300 business partners and 300 companies. And he said, well, you know, when I shake someone's hand, within 60 seconds, I know whether I can trust this person and do business with him. Now, that is what we mean by intuition or sixth sense. Branson said within 60 seconds of shaking someone's hand. I also remember speaking to Lynn Twist. Lynn Twist is the author of The Soul of Money, and people call her one of the world's living saints. She has fed over 1 million people through her foundations, and she's helped preserve 10 million acres of Amazonian land through her other NGO, Pachamama. But I spoke to Lynn Twist, and I actually was in an Amazonian rainforest with her and her organization, Pachamama, because we support the cause. And Lynn was telling me how she got involved with buying up Amazonian land. Apparently, she had a dream. She had a dream while she was working on her prior foundation, which was Feed the Hungry. And in that dream, she saw native faces of the Achuar people who protect the rainforest in Ecuador. They came to her in a dream and they asked for help. And she had this longing to figure out what were these painted faces that she saw in her dream. She described them to a friend who was familiar with South American ethnic groups that lived in that region. He pointed out that the facial markings she saw in her dream matched those of the Achuar. She went to meet the Achuar and they said, you know, we've been expecting you. That is intuition that led Lynn Twist on her mission to eventually protect 10 million acres of Amazonian rainforest. When I started Mindvalley, I followed my gut a lot. I remember it was a rainy day in New York, and I was trying to decide between 2 different ideas to pursue. One was to build a meditation website. One was to go and get a patent on a new children's toy I had designed as an engineer. And as I was walking in the rain, trying to figure out what it is that I needed to do, I felt this strong, intense calling of intuition to dump my toy patent, to just abandon it and pursue the idea that most people thought wasn't very sexy or shouldn't be the right one to do, the meditation website. I'd been turned down by various friends who I'd asked to be my business partner because they said, you know, it isn't going to scale. But I decided to pursue it anyway, and the rest is history. The rest is Mindvalley, which now employs some 170 people around the world. So I really believe in this idea of intuition. The question is, how can we actually apply intuition into our life as a unique system so that we can get positive results in terms of being able to make the right decision. And so I'm really excited to be bringing to you today's guest, Sonia Choquette. Sonia is the author of some 19 different best-selling books. and she has her own radio show called Six Sensory Living. Her books have been translated into 37 languages, and she's the foremost authority on training people to live and work with intuition. So in this call, I'm going to bring up my friend Sonia, who is a master of this art form. And Sonia is going to be teaching you two particular systems you can bring in your life to get a gut check on intuition. One is called, and she gives it a funny name, she calls it clearing the garbage. And it's really a series of 9 questions to ask yourself when you need to make an important decision. An important decision such as, should I take this job? Should I invest in this stock? Should I be with this person? What is he or she or they thinking about me? It's a really, really, really powerful tool that I've started using in my life, and we're going to teach you this system. So with this simple system, you're going to learn how to activate your intuition. But I want you to know this, right? Once you start actually speaking and listening to your inner voice, it starts getting more and more and more powerful. Intuition, like a muscle, is a trainable skill. In fact, scientists have found it to be a trainable skill. There are numerous books on this subject, such as Best Evidence, or The Field, or Conscious Universe by Dean Radin, which cover numerous scientific studies on intuition. And these studies show that there is a way that the human mind and brain is absorbing knowledge from an additional source. But what these studies also show is that particular human who is being studied can be trained to get better and better and better at drawing this information. So once you start using intuition, you get significantly better at it. And that's the good news. Now, why intuition? 2 things. It's not just about making better decisions in life. When you really learn to harness your intuition, it also allows you to be a far more creative individual. Inspiration and intuition are 2 sides of that same coin. And throughout history, many people have been able to draw upon these to create amazing works of art, film, literature, and science. Take, for example, the singer Robbie Williams. Robbie Williams, in an interview, said that he came up with the lyrics for his favorite song, the best song that he wrote. It's called Better Man. He said he came up with those lyrics when he was on the beach in the south of France. And he had this intuitive experience where he seemed to be communicating with John Lennon. And he said that was when those lyrics came to him. Then there is the inventor Elias Howe, who invented the sewing machine. Elias had been working for years trying to figure out how to design a needle that could auto-sew a piece of fabric. And he had a dream. And in that dream, he was in a pot of boiling water in a jungle somewhere, surrounded by cannibals who were about to cook him alive. And they were waving spears at him. And at the tip of every spear was a hole. And that's when he figured it out. To design the modern sewing machine, you had to put the hole at the tip of the needle, not at the end of the needle. And that's how the sewing machine got invented. Numerous occurrences like that show that many famous scientists, inventors have come up with their breakthrough ideas, works of art, or technology through intuition. So what you're going to learn here is a simple step-by-step system that Sonia is going to teach us on how to ask ourselves the right questions to draw upon intuition. But I want you to know that this is a powerful model of living, because once you really start using it, you find yourself being more creative. You find yourself being able to draw upon inspirational ideas. And if you are a writer or an entrepreneur or in any creative field, you certainly start to believe that there's absolutely no way you can be suffering from writer's block, or there's absolutely no way that you can ever go through life without that breakthrough idea. I've started some 15 companies based on ideas that came to me through intuition. And I know this is going to make a remarkable impact on your life too. So let's get started with Sonia.